Feldco Football Recap Live is brought to you by Feldco. For quality windows, siding, and doors, call 866-4FELDCO, Chicago's home renewal experts. Your Chicagoland and Northwest Indiana Chevy dealers, the official truck partner of the Chicago Bears. Hooters. At Hooters, originality isn't just one thing, it's everything. World-famous wings and more, served up by the iconic Hooters girl. Hooters, always original. Dr. Pepper, an American original, just like our Chicago Bears. Grab an ice-cold, refreshing Dr. Pepper today at a McDonald's near you. Special Olympics Illinois. Special Olympics Illinois, so I did. Learn more at SOILL.org. Take that. Hey, welcome into Feldco Football Recap Live with the great Tom Waddle here in our suburban studios.
This place is nice.
There you go.
What have you been doing? Been doing whatever you've been doing. You've been doing it right, and you've been doing it well. This is great.
Thank you. Thanks
This is the punishment couch, huh?
That's it.
Or this
Therapy
would be
couch.
the therapy couch as well.
Correct.
If you're a Bears fan, you could use it.
Yeah, or Ryan Poles could use it.
Anybody up there at House Hall could probably use it.
We'll get to the 6-3 loss
Do we
in
have
just a
to?
moment. Not really.
Yeah.
We're not going to talk a lot about that game. Let me ask you a question.
Yep.
Do you think Matt Eberflus, I saw a picture of him on social where he was smoking a cigar. He looked like he had just the weight of the world
Where
off
was
his
he at?
shoulders.
Where was he
I
at?
don't know where he was, but he looked so happy. Cigar, relax.
I don't.
10 million coming in.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, nobody wants that on their resume, so I don't know if he's happy. I think that
Relieved.
maybe so, but also, look, I think what you found out over the course of time that the issues inside that building ran deeper than just him.
They did.
And in fact, I think you can make a case for at least, certainly defensively, that they've been worse since firing Matt Eberflus.
Defensively, they've been horrific.
Absolutely. And you thought that this team was going to pull together and, the removal of him as your head coach was going to spur them on to something. You're going to get that interim head coach bump. It's been nothing but the opposite. You go look at what the San Francisco 49ers were doing before the Bears went out to Santa Clara and look at what they've done after the Bears left Santa Clara. And that was the bump we were supposed to get. What you got was an ass whipping is what you got.
So if you look at the rankings from PFF, I believe since Eric Washington took over, and this is not a shot at Eric Washington.
Because he's been asked to do something he wasn't originally brought here to do.
No, he's not
It's
a play
his
caller.
fault.
He's not a defensive play caller.
No.
I believe they're ranked 32nd in
Yeah.
every major category.
Well, how could you not be? 2 of the last 3 games leading up to the Seattle game, they had given up over 300 yards of offense in the first half alone. You go back to, I mean, there was a stretch there. Again, it was San Francisco, and then I believe it was Minnesota where they didn't, they weren't victimized as much as they were against the 49ers. And then against the Lions, they gave up another 300-plus yard first half. So, I mean, when was the last time a Bears defense got torched for over 300 yards in the first half? Has it ever happened in a single game, much less 2 out of 3 games?
Maybe the second year of Trestman when they gave up back-to-back 50 burgers.
Could have been.
But that's the only one I could think of.
Yes. I mean, the fact that they're giving up, again, prior to the Seattle game, they were giving up 34 points a game, I think, in the 4 games leading up to that. So, I mean, to circle back to Matt Eberflus, how I always thought he was a really nice guy. I think he does have some defensive acumen. I think, he knows how to coordinate a defense to a certain degree. Did not believe that moving forward with him in 2024 was the right decision and made that, well known, at least from my perspective, very early on. But I think what you all learned is that he, at least on defense, getting rid of him wasn't going to cure what ailed this team.
Okay, so we could talk briefly our 4 seasons, heating, air conditioning, plumbing, electric game recap for all the right reasons. 4 seasons, 6-3. They had every chance to win that game.
Yes.
They had the Kyler Gordon scoop and score, bring it back, said he was touched down. He didn't believe it, but I think it was the right call. Then you had Caleb, who has not looked good. We'll talk about that in a minute on the tape. But the throw he made off balance, rolling left across his body, a dime to Roma Dunze. Like, those are the moments where you go, oh, God, if we got the right staff in here and better O-line, maybe, just maybe it could turn around.
Yeah, he has 3 or 4 moments every game, Cap, that are just jaw-dropping. I mean, the fourth down throw to DJ Moore, as the fourth quarter was here. There were several instances where he made, like when the ball was snapped, Coleman Shelton kind of dribbled it back to him. He picked it up, evaded somebody, and then kind of pushed past it to Keenan
Tremendous.
Allen. There's 3 or 4 of those in every game, but I have to tell you, I'm pretty alarmed by what I saw, at least on film, certainly in the first half. There have been really good moments, and I wouldn't say that I haven't lost faith in Caleb, but I'd be lying to you if I didn't say to you I've been disappointed with his overall game and where it is at this point in the season. Now, I've also been very vocal about, I think for young quarterbacks, stability is really important, and to be good consistently, I think you have to have a stable environment. You can't have consistency without stability. When you have instability, I think you have inconsistencies, and I think that's what you've seen. So there have been moments, but the overall play, it hasn't been what I thought it was going to be. And again, he's been sacked more than any other quarterback in the league. Some of those sacks are on him. He hasn't been nearly as accurate as I expected him to be. He's had receivers drop a ton of passes. I think he's completing about 62% of his passes. In this league, you have to complete 67% or more, because so many of them are wide receiver screens and their layups and their quick hits. And so, I mean, that
can
will
it be
boost
fixed?
I think it can be fixed. I think, I think there've been moments where he's kind of reverted back to what we saw in his college days, where he was just kind of winging it and trying to do too much. He has to play in structure, because the NFL doesn't allow you to succeed when you're out there winging it. Many guys try it and many guys fail doing it. Again, I haven't lost faith in him, but I think he needs somebody to come in. I think his fundamentals have broken down a little bit. Like when he gets inaccurate, you can tie a lot of it directly to his feet. I think his ball fakes are sloppy at this time. I just think the whole body of work right now, he needs somebody to come in and really coach him up. And again, that's not necessarily going to fix all of it, but I think it certainly would help. There's a ton of talent there. He's got to play on time more frequently. Ball's got to come out quicker. He's got to make quicker decisions. Like, I could walk you through the entire first half. The first series against Seattle, he tries to throw that ball over the middle to Rome, and it's a body shot. If you just, you throw it down and inside, he catches it. He throws it too high and too hard. And oh, by the way, if you watch the film, Cole Kmet is all by himself, trailing him by about 5 or 6 yards to his left. And all he had to do was get the ball to Cole. For some reason, the Caleb Williams Cole Kmet relationship, at least I'm just saying,
it doesn't look good.
It doesn't. And again, I don't have no idea. I'm sure they're good friends. I'm sure it was like, you remember how Justin Fields and Darnell Mooney, like, they were really good friends. They worked together,
but they weren't on the same page.
Never. Like, Darnell Mooney had a horrible 2023, and I said to whoever, it's like, well, wow, Darnell Mooney's been a disappointment. I go, for whatever reason, I don't know why it's not clicking. These guys, I don't think they dislike each other.
He's been really good in Atlanta.
And I said to everybody, he's going to be just fine wherever he lands, and he's had a really good season. I don't know what the disconnect here is, but there were 4 or 5 routes that you remember the in route. It was a deep in route that, again, Caleb overthrows. He was expecting Rome to keep coming. He was motioning at him, keep running.
And they showed the replay, and he's like, keep going.
Yes. Well, it's a cover 2, and I had no problem with Rome throttling it down. But even if he had kept running, Caleb's inaccuracy would have led to that ball being incomplete anyway, because he threw it too high.
And too hard.
But the bigger issue with this here is, again, processing things. Cole Kmet's in the slot, runs a seam route, and it's a cover 2. And once he clears the linebacker and bends across, the safety on top of him is basically turned and covering, the other side. It's an easy read. You throw the seam route. I mean, you hit Cole Kmet. He's basically running.
Touchdown.
At the very least, it's a 40-yard gain. And for whatever reason, he doesn't pull the trigger. So I don't know what the issue is. I don't know if it's a trust issue. I don't know if it's just, circumstance, but that connection has really, I think I did the math on it. I think since the Jacksonville game, Cole was only targeted prior to Seattle 24 times. And 10 of those times were against the Vikings in their first meeting. So think about it. So that was what, 10 games, 9 or 10 games? Outside of one game, he'd only been targeted 14 times. Now, I think some of that is a product of you've got 3 receivers on the field at all times, and you've got a tight end. And, so the quarterback's going to look to DJ, going to look to Keenan Allen, going to look to Rome before he's going to look. That's just kind of natural. Whereas compared to what they do in Detroit, you got Amon-Ra St. Brown, you got Jamison Williams, and you got Sam Laporta. So Laporta's one of your top 3.
And Tim Patrick's been getting a lot of looks too.
No question, but Laporta's higher up on that, that ranking in terms of priorities.
Laporta's a better player than Cole.
No question. Yes, absolutely. I'm just saying how they run things up there. The tight end plays the role of one of their top 3 receivers, whereas here the top 3 receivers are all wide receivers, and Cole's kind of sometimes he's a second thought. And again, I'm not suggesting to you that he's Laporta or he's Greg, George Kittle, or he's, even Hawkinson or some of the other Trey McBride. There's a lot of really good tight ends in the league that play athletically and stretch the field. But Cole definitely serves a purpose and has a role. And it's just, it's weird to watch. It's weird to watch when you put the tape on why Caleb's not processing things quickly and he's not finding Cole.
I had somebody who I trust who knows the inner workings up there and said, Caleb's done. He is mentally fried. This season has just worn him out, whether it's the Eberflus stuff, multiple offensive coordinators, 60 whatever sacks already with a Green Bay game to go. Said he's done.
Well, look.
And that's not good to hear.
It's not. But, let me make an excuse for him to start with. Again, it goes back to stability. Like we thought coming into this season, when you accumulated what you accumulated via the draft,
that he had this great situation.
Not only that, but like not a great situation. Many of us thought this could be the best situation a rookie quarterback's ever found himself in. Fast forward 16 weeks, this may be one of the more frenetic and disruptive situations a young quarterback's dysfunctional situation a quarterback's ever found himself in. Now, he needs to assume responsibility for some of that as well. He has not played well at times, but there has been, it goes back to what I was saying earlier, Cap, about stability. You have seen flashes of brilliance, but he hasn't been consistently good enough. It's hard to be consistently good when you don't have that stability. Stability breeds consistency. Instability breeds, to me, inconsistency. So I think that that's part of the equation. But look, you're a professional. You get paid handsomely for this stuff, even if it's not going your way and you've had all of that stuff, you still got to grind. And I think you see some of that lack of attention to detail right now, whether it be footwork is out of whack. The ball.
Someone said to me his snap counts, everything. He's just off.
A little bit out of whack.
Yeah. Totally.
But look, I think the problems run deep in that building right now. I still personally can't get over. There's 2 things real quick that I can't get over. One is I don't know how Zach Pickens is a healthy scratch when you're 4-11 or whatever the record was at the time, unless there's an explanation for it. And more importantly, you have to explain to me why Amagaji's available to start a Monday Night Football in US Bank Stadium against that defense in their building, covering or protecting the blind side of your rookie quarterback. You don't give him any help on the first 4th down. You don't give him any help on the sack, strip, fumble. Basically, you threw him to the wolves, but you thought he was okay to be out there helping your team.
Then you don't dress him.
Then the following week, he's not even available. He's not dressed.
And this week, he stood on the sidelines.
So you please explain that to me. Like, how can you really go through the process of trying to describe stability and common sense approach when Amagaji's on the field Monday night against the Vikings in their building
with Brian Flores' exotic defense?
He's in street clothes the following week at home against a Lions team that's been decimated by injuries, and then you play against the Seattle
and
Seahawks,
he doesn't get in,
and you've got a backup left tackle and a backup left guard playing. So I don't know what to say other than I'm just a little bit confused. And when I do get down on Caleb, these are some of the things that I'm reminding myself of.
All right, our Caleb Williams Winging It segment brought to you by our great partners at Hooters. Don't forget, on the 7th, our final Hooters show of the year, called the Melrose Park Hooters. And you get to see Alex Brown, Tommy Waddle, see me. There's Caleb's numbers right there. 16 of 28 for just $122. No touchdowns. Had the one taken off the board. He finally was picked off at the end of the game. He did run for 37 yards. And check out the wings at Hooters. Best in the area. They are phenomenal. Always original.
I would like to see him wing it more frequently, to be honest with you. I don't know if he got
Did
caught
you have
up.
a problem with the interception? I didn't.
No.
He got hit, I think.
Yeah, no. I mean, again, I would like to see him push the ball downfield
Take
a little
more
bit
chances.
more, take more chances. And with that comes, there will be interceptions, but that's how you learn. And interceptions are part of the sport, and it's part of the growth process.
What do you say to people who say, and there's people up in that building that have said to me, if we don't F up the Hail Mary game and we go to 5-2, there is no way we're losing both Arizona and New England. And they feel like it would have saved the season, and the season could be 8-9 wins. Do you co-sign that or no?
No, I don't. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot there to chew on. First of all, I said it to you going into the Arizona game. If they can't bounce back, it's a sign to me that they're a fragile team.
Well, then they have no culture.
And they have no culture, because it was a devastating loss. It was a dramatic loss. But at that point, you're 4-3. All we got to do is regroup, okay? Come out and reestablish ourselves and get back to doing things the way we're supposed to do. They went to Arizona and just got freight trained. Like, they got mauled at the line of scrimmage. Everybody in a Cardinal uniform was winning their battle, individual battle. It was embarrassing. But as I told you all along, I thought the worst loss of the season was the following week at home against the Patriots team that had no business beating you 19-3 or whatever the score was. So
you didn't show up for that.
You did not show up for that. Had they won the Washington game, would they be a 7-8 win team? Maybe. But look at them. Like, if they had solid character and were a talented enough team, they would have fallen into a victory over the course of the last few weeks, and they haven't.
They've lost 10 straight.
It's easy to say, well, that just ruined our season. Well, something tells me you were so fragile that even if it had gone your way, you would have found a way to shoot yourself in the foot going down the stretch. Just not a good enough team across the board. Not as good as I thought they were, certainly. But like, that's going back to that Washington game. That's crazy that sabotaged their season. Like, I mean, Mike Ditka, I've told you this 1,000 times, said to me one time, kid, it's not the adversity that you face that defines you. It's how you respond to that adversity. That's what your legacy will say about you. So everyone's going to face adversity. Everyone's going to get knocked down. How do you respond to that adversity? And they turtled. Like, they went into a shell. I don't even know if they went into a shell. I think they all went to their own corners.
They were
instead of coming together as a team. How can you be done 7 games into the season?
Fair.
So it tells you a lot. I hear the word culture coming out of that building a lot. I was saying to you all the time, like, all this conversation about we want to be held accountable. We want to be coached harder. We want to be this one. Really? Did you? I mean, really? That's the results? You weren't coached harder. You weren't held accountable. And that's the reason why you've lost now 11 games in a row. And I don't buy that. I really don't. So it's been
brutal.
Disappointing.
Absolutely pathetic.
That's why they are where they are right now.
And they deserve it.
And yes, they if anyone thinks they've been dealt a bad hand, well, I think you're
the last place schedule for crying out loud.
Right. Exactly. And for the most part, they've had decent health, right? I mean, compared to other teams, ask the Detroit Lions how they feel about the health of their roster.
And they're still playing for the 1 seed.
Yeah. I mean, all of your weapons are available. Caleb's been available in every game. All your receivers.
They announced today that he would start.
He should play.
And so that's all 17.
Yeah. And all of his receivers, I think Keenan missed a few games earlier in the year. Rome's been available. DJ's been available. Cole hasn't missed any time. DeAndre Swift has been available. They've had some issues on their offensive line, but that O-line wasn't good enough to start the season, even if they were healthy.
What did you think of DeAndre Swift the other night? And by the way, his numbers, he averaged 4.4 yards per carry, 12 for 53. What did you think?
I think that I think in some ways he's a product of there's not a lot of space in front of him.
Yeah.
But I think he's a fine player. I do. I don't think he's a difference maker.
Right.
Take it from a guy who wasn't a difference maker. I know him when I see him. I look at one every morning when I look in the mirror. Solid, but like if you were going to spend that money, Cap, he was like when the clock made it available for you to sign anyone, the Bears couldn't wait to sign him. Like, who's a better? You tell me. Again, solid. I'm not sitting here trashing him. He's an NFL player, and he's run for 1,000 yards in the league. Who's a better overall back, Josh Jacobs or DeAndre Swift?
Josh Jacobs.
Who's a better overall back, Saquon Barkley or
Barkley? And that's why the Bears were in there, and they said it got too rich for their blood. And my question is, really?
Yeah.
You looked at those two and went, I'm not going to spend extra for that guy.
Well, if you were in the market for a running back, which they were, and I know Carmen Yurk and a lot of people, have devalued the position or think the position doesn't carry as much value as it used to. And I think there's some validity to that for sure. I still have an appreciation for the position. It's just a matter of how much do you want to appropriate to that spot. But you defined it as a position of need and one that you were willing to spend money on. They gave him $8 million a year for 3 years, right? Now, I don't know how much overall is guaranteed. Probably, the $8 million this year, 16, so probably 2 years. So I don't think Josh Jacobs got a whole lot more. I don't think that I think that DeAndre Swift actually has a higher, salary cap hit this year for the Bears.
But I think less cash outlay.
So what?
Agreed.
You know what? And again, they're in a fine cap situation because of you've got a rookie quarterback. So again, I'm not telling you that they should have gone out and spent $10 million a year on a running back. But when you identified the position as an area where you were going to spend some of your currency, and they did $8 million a year, then why wouldn't you spend it on someone like Josh Jacobs, who's a better football player, or for Saquon
Aaron
Barkley?
Jones is a better football player.
Yeah, he had some injury issues, and I don't know if they were, concerned about that. But yeah, I mean, and look, he's had some of the same issues that Caleb Williams has had, and that the group in front of him isn't great. And again, how can you find any rhythm as a running back when you're changing offensive coordinators at all times? So hasn't been an ideal situation for anybody up there. But at the end of the day, they have to, this is pro football. They have to assume some of the responsibility for the lack of production.
Okay, what do you say to the people? And I had this discussion. I put a YouTube short out after the Sunday night game, and I said, I watched Zach Ertz, who caught the game-winning pass on
beautiful
catch.
Beautiful throw and catch.
It was low. Nobody could have picked it off.
Yeah.
He scooped it.
And I mean,
snatch. It was a bullet. It was a hell of a catch. Rolled over, he tucked it, and game over. And they interview him, and the first thing he says, did you see it?
I did.
Where he
talked
said,
about a culture.
Let me talk about what DQ is building here, Dan Quinn.
And
he
Cliff
said
Kingsbury.
The culture that he is building here is sensational.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't doubt that. And I think that goes along with winning. What are they now, 11-5?
Yeah.
I mean, they go hand in hand. Like if you're 5-11, the culture ain't so good. So
true.
And you
but
stay
is
healthy.
Culture overrated?
I don't think it's overrated, but I think it's leaned on a little bit too much on either side of it.
So what was it like playing on the late 80s Bears coming off a Super Bowl?
I was scared to death of half the guys in there. I mean, like, that's where when I hear the concept of, well, we need the coach to hold us accountable. You know who held us accountable? Steve McMichael and Dan Hampton and Richard Dent and Mike Singletary and Tom Thayer and Jay Hilgenberg and Mark Bortz and Jimbo Covert and Neil Anderson, Keith Van Horn. Like they all,
Dennis McKinnon.
When you need, Silky D was an unbelievable player. I think I only played with him 1 year. I know I've told you this story, but and again, I'm not taking because I know he was a fabulous player. I remember being in the first meeting in Platteville for my first practice. After practice, you'd be watching film. It's like 9:00. And I think Ed Hughes was our receivers coach at the time. And I was like, Coach, I got one last question. I'm this undrafted free agent. I'm the last guy on the roster.
And if the meeting's over, guys can go out.
Gone. Yeah. 9:00. So it's like 9:02. And I asked the question, and before Ed Hughes even answers, Dennis turns around, looks at me, and goes, "Shut the fuck up, Rook. You ain't gonna be here in a week." So it was the last time I ever talked at a meeting. Yeah, but like that was, as a rookie, you deferred to the veterans, and Dennis was one of those guys. And our locker room was basically taken care of by the players. And if it ever did get to Ditka, that's, then there was serious trouble. But I never thought culture was a problem in our locker room. Scoring points was a bit of a problem for us, but I don't think culture was ever a problem.
So do you, when you hear like Albert Breer, who I love, comes on with me and Hoodie every Tuesday morning. Albert Breer has said they want a leader of men.
I don't know what that means. That's just kind of like, that's an NFL platitude. And I'm taking a shot at Albert. I love Albert. Albert's, I spent some time with Albert at the combine and love talking with him. I think he does great work with you and Hoodie. But that's that's a platitude. It's almost like during the political season, all the candidates just say stuff that they think will resonate most, catchphrases. And what is a leader of men? I mean, it's somebody that certainly can command a room. Somebody that can get the best out of you. I mean, I don't want to poo-poo it, directly, but, I don't know how you define it either. Did anyone know that Kevin O'Connell was a leader of men and not just an offensive,
you would hope people in the league did.
Yes. I mean, look, I don't think that's why when I look at the potential offense or the potential coaches going forward, what I've said it to you all along. I've been consistent. I definitely, if you want to call it being a leader of men, that's fine. Again, I think you defined it correctly. It's kind of a catchphrase. I need somebody that can, that can command the situation and be your leader. But for me, it would be somebody who's got an offensive background. I personally want my version of Kevin O'Connell. I want a Matt LaFleur. I want a Sean McVay. I want one of those guys, because I do think as much as I've been critical of what I've seen from Caleb recently, I think there's so much talent there and there's so much, potential that I would like someone like one of those guys to come in.
Why does it have to be an offensive guy for people that go, just get the right freaking leader?
Well, again, why can't that guy be one of your offensive guys? You think Matt LaFleur is the right freaking leader in Green Bay? You think Kevin O'Connell's the right freaking leader?
Someone up there told me Matt LaFleur
doesn't take shit from anybody.
He said, dude, he may look like the nicest guy in the world. You cross the line, you don't hustle, that dude is going to come down on you.
So I want that guy. And again, if Mike Vrabel was named the head coach.
But is Sean McDermott not a good football coach in Buffalo?
He is. Yes.
They got a high-powered offense.
No question. I'm not saying it can't be done, but if you gave me my choice, I want my Matt LaFleur or Kevin O'Connell. That's what I want. And if that guy could be Ben Johnson, who could come in and be that leader and attract the attention of everyone in the room, then that's what I would prefer, because I think you've got a really valuable commodity here. And
are you afraid that if it's a defensive guy, his coordinator will leave?
I mean, that's something that bothers some people. I've seen it not work for so freaking long. I don't care.
Name me the last coach. Adam Gase left here, I think, to be a head coach.
Yeah.
But name me the last assistant that you went, oh, God.
Cap, if you brought
Fangio?
Let's just say, like, you hire Vrabel and you bring, Brian Dable in to be your offensive coordinator. Now, and as long as if Caleb throws for 4,200 yards and 38 touchdowns and you win 11 games and you're in the second round of the postseason because your quarterback is pointed in the right direction and is a top 7 quarterback in the league, I don't give a shit if Brian Dable is then hired by, the Arizona Cardinals to right now. I just want somebody that can fix it. In a perfect world, it's like somebody talked about Pete Carroll. I have all the respect in the world for Pete. I think Pete is a fabulous coach. I think he's done a great job. He's won a national title or 2 of them. He won a Super Bowl. I think he's got a great resume. Not to be an ageist, but I want, ideally, somebody that's going to be here for the next 10 years.
So what if you brought Pete Carroll in? This is what I've been proposing. Pete Carroll comes in as president of football operations, and if he says, I can work with Ryan Poles, have at it. He says, no, I'm bringing my own personnel guy in with me. Okay, have at it. You're president of football. Kevin Warren, you're handling.
You could sell me
all
on
the
that all
business.
day, every day. And he gets then
You get
to hire his
smarter
own
in the
coach.
building.
Yes.
Because my problem is, okay, if you go out and say,
I don't think you can have Pete in the building making decisions and Ryan Poles in the building making a lot of decisions and Kevin Warren in the building making a lot of decisions. I think that, I mean, and I don't know that Pete's, wants to be the general manager of a team. It would have to be a real unique situation.
Okay, but if you move on from Ryan Poles, some people would, some people wouldn't. I mean, I like Ryan. I think he's done some good things, but the offensive line condition, that bothers me tremendously. I'd like to ask him, Ryan, really?
Yeah.
That's what you set your young quarterback up with.
Well, these are all things we were talking about before the season even began. So this isn't, hindsight.
Some of his second and third round picks, Jervon Dexter, Zach Pickens didn't even dress the other day. The Amagaji situation.
Well, you have
that we
Valus
talked
Challenge, you have
about.
Tyler Scott. You used a fourth round pick on a punter. There have been a lot of questions. You traded a fifth round pick for
Ryan Bates.
You traded a sixth round pick for Dan Feeney. There are a lot of things that didn't go well. You traded a second round pick for Chase Claypool. So I mean, I think this is all fair. I mean, the way the coaching staff was handled and whose decision was it to move on or to stick with Matt Eberflus? Those are all things that have to stick to him as well. I like Ryan. He's a wonderful guy. I think as you stay in this league, you do learn from your mistakes. But the one thing, Cap, you've been here longer than I have, that this team has never really done or hasn't done for decades is nobody's ever been on the same timeline. And there are franchises that have guys that have been added 1 year, the coach is here, the quarterback comes 2 years later, and then the GM. If you've proven that you can succeed with that type of,
because even when they gave Pace the extension and they lined him up with Matt Nagy, they inherited the quarterback that Ryan picked that Matt didn't.
Correct. And then they were allowed to trade up and draft Justin Fields when they were in a precarious
and a year later,
situation.
They're both gone.
Right. So I think if you're a franchise that has proven in the past that you can function in a productive manner and you can win, even though guys are kind of coming in and out at different times, fine. But if you're not one of those teams that has proven that you can do that, then I think you're better off having guys that are more on the same timeline. So you're all pulling on the same end of the rope. I thought it was a huge mistake for them to keep Matt Eberflus last year, knowing you were going to draft Caleb Williams.
Yeah, I would love to know the answer. Did Ryan truly want to move on and was told 3 years left on the contract? No. Or did he truly want to stick with him?
Yeah.
And that would be concerning to me because, look, I had to interview that guy, as did you. I'm sure he's a wonderful person.
He is.
He just was not head coach material.
No, he wasn't. I mean, there's a lot that goes into the operations, of a football game and a football team. And some guys are equipped to do it. Some guys are equipped to be the head coach and the play caller. I mean, some guys are equipped to be the head coach and the defensive play caller. Other guys are more, built just to be a play caller or a position coach. There's no crime in any of that. I just think he was overhired. And to keep him in the position that they kept him in when, I mean, it was obvious to everybody that this had to change or needed to change, knowing you were going to draft Caleb. They've always preached stability and not just pulling the plug on it. But if you're stable but bad, what good is it?
It's the same thing.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I preach stability too. I think stability is great. I think it would be really important for Caleb to have a really stable environment. But if you're going to stay with someone like Ryan because you just don't want to change general managers every 3 or 4 years, well, what good is it to keep someone that you may not have full and total belief in?
All right, I have a great question for you. But first, our Chevy drive of the game. Your Chicagoland and Northwest Indiana Chevy dealers, none There was no
good
drive of the
choice.
game. I won't soil the great name of the Chicagoland and Northwest Indiana Chevy dealers. I write in the notes app as I'm going to come here to do the recap after the Bears game. And I'm like, Caleb led us on the game-winning drive. Didn't happen.
No.
Bears lose 6-3, but it is brought to you by Chicagoland and Northwest Indiana Chevy dealers, the official truck partner of the Chicago Bears. We'll come back. I've got another interesting question for Tom Waddle. We will continue Feldco football recap live after this.
Kick off the new year in style with Feldco.
Let the experts at Feldco renew your home with 25% off Feldco windows, siding, doors, and roofing. Plus, no interest for 1 year. Choosing Feldco for your home renewal project means you'll be getting high-quality products made for the Midwestern weather, crafted right here in the U.S.
Hurry, 25% off ends soon. Call now.
For quality windows, siding, and doors, call 866 for Feldco.
Apt. For the best appliances for football season, shop at Apt. Pleasing people since 1936. Find them at apt.com. Four Seasons, heating, plumbing, air conditioning, and electric. For all the right reasons, Four Seasons. When you're on the tollway, peace of mind is just a call away. With the Illinois Tollway Star 999 service, help is always at your fingertips. Whether it's a flat tire or an unexpected breakdown, our dedicated team is here to assist you anytime and anywhere on the tollway. Drive with confidence knowing that Star 999 is just a dial away. Remember, Star 999, we're always there when you need us. They're like toxic to him.
Yeah.
All right, welcome back here on Feldco Football Recap Live. That's Tom Waddle. I'm David Kaplan here in our suburban studio.
Sitting on the punishment couch. That's what it is. Had to come into the studio today, which is great. This place is fantastic.
It's a lot of fun being here.
Olin's enjoying Florida right now, right?
He is. His kids play on Tuesday against, who is it? Illinois plays who? South Carolina. Illinois plays South Carolina.
A good matchup.
And Katie Langen from our staff here, she just graduated from South Carolina last May.
Nice.
So she's up against Olin in the game tomorrow.
I'd be cheering for those Croots kids.
Yeah. Josh,
got to be such a proud father of those kids.
How cool is that?
It's fantastic.
To be a Hall of Fame level player and sit there and go, that's my kids right there.
I bet it's, it's a great resource for his sons to have. Hey, Dad, help me there. And I'm sure Olin is very honest with them at times, but I think that he is an enormously valuable resource for those kids.
He told me a great story. His kids were playing at Loyola.
Yeah.
And he's watching film with them. And he's like, watch this play here. He is going to get you to bite, and they're going to go right over the top of you early in the game. And his son, I don't know which one it was, said, Dad, we're on top of this. Yeah, our coaches said that's not going to happen.
That's a mistake.
And he said, he's sitting there watching. He goes, hey, Wendy, his wife, watch this. Here they go. Boom, right over the top, touchdown. He walked down. He goes, what'd I tell you?
Yeah. He's not only one of the best players in Bears history, he's one of the smartest football guys I've ever.
He's amazing, to talk football.
Yeah.
The two of you, I get an education.
Well, he's got a lot more skins on the wall than I do, but
it's pretty good.
He's as smart about the sport as he was talented.
Okay, our app player of the game, I'm going to give it to the Bears defense because they did hold them to 6 points. You give up only 6 and you can't find a way to win. That is pretty pathetic, but they did do a pretty solid job defensively. The Seahawks, you had Geno Smith, 17 of 23 for 160, no touchdowns, was sacked 3 times in a passer rating of 92.7.
You know what was interesting
about rushing 122
about their approach too is like Geno came into the game having averaged 35 passes a game. What did they do? They came out and tried to pound the ball. And they didn't even have Kenneth Walker III.
They did not,
or whatever.
They had Zach Charbonnet.
Yeah. So like they that tells you what they felt about that Bears front is that they could handle their business, and they came out and ran the ball. I was shocked. I thought this was going to be a 4-hour game because both teams like to throw it.
So I bet under 34 pass attempts.
Oh, wow.
And it was I thought it'd be like 30.
For
30
Geno
what?
Smith.
Yeah.
He was averaging 35.
I bet.
And a
under.
Bears defense that couldn't stop a fart. How did you – why would you bet that? That was –
I did a
good
bunch
for
of
you,
reading,
but-
and somebody said, watch, they're going to run the football. Geno's not going to throw it much. I'm like, I'll bet that.
wow. Well, that was prophetic for sure.
That was a free $75.
Well, there you go.
Unfortunately, I had the
done.
over in the game.
Well done.
That didn't go well.
Well, yeah.
So
At the end of the day, were you on the right side or the wrong side?
end of the day, I ended up on the right side because I had the Falcons last night, and I had bought it up in a parlay that hit, and I had the over in the Carolina game, and I had the Vikings. So
Good
it was
day for you. Yeah.
But I mean, it was nickels here.
You're
not a lot.
you're like Floyd Mayweather Jr. Like we always hear about your wins. We never hear about your
Oh,
losses.
I had the over in that Bears game really
Yeah.
hurt me. So my question to you is, there's a lot of people that, like, if you put a poll question out, I would think 70% of Bears fans at least would say time to fire Ryan Poles and move on.
I think it's, yeah. I mean, I would ask the question: if you owned the team, what would you do, knowing you needed a new coach?
I'll
and
put
trying
that
to get
question out
everybody-
tonight.
Trying to get everybody on the same timeline, and I think it's a valid question. And again, I've said this a bunch. I know how hard this game is, both to play it, to coach it, to general manage it, to reside over it. It's a really hard sport to be good at consistently. So I know how hard these jobs are. So I'm always reluctant to, but I mean, if you ask me to put a ledger on the positives and the negatives, knowing that you have to hire a coach, I think that, the scales would tip to making a change more so than,
Okay. So that'll
which
be,
I know is where you're going with the question.
right. That will be our Ankin Law question of the day. 312-6 million for the great Howard Ankin.
And it's hard for me to say that too, because he's a BC guy and he's a wonderful young man.
He's a
So-
great dude. He lives not far from this studio. So that'll be the question on the rush hour on Tuesday afternoon.
You may want to come over and whip our ass after saying that,
Might.
they may want to move
Walk
on.
out. I just heard what you guys said on your show over there. My question is, if you indeed moved on from him, who's doing the hiring in that building?
It's such a great question.
Because when Sheila Ford Hamp took over
Brought
the
in
Detroit
Chris
Lions,
Spielman.
she called Chris Spielman and said, I want you to have a job here, and I need you to help me pick the next GM, head coach. I want you to get some of your brethren
Do you
together.
understand the amount of humility and humbleness, if that's a word, you would have to, self-awareness that you would have to have as someone who owns a $5 billion entity to admit that, you need help.
Yeah, but you
trying to
look
do
back
this.
at, like, I would think, in fact, I know me, and I'll speak for you because I know you well enough, that if you were looking in the mirror every day and you went, well, I've been in this job since 2011, I have exactly 0 playoff wins, and I basically get the shit beat out of me by the fan base on a daily basis.
I would change
I
the
need
way.
help.
Yes, I would change the way I did business.
Whether it was Olin Kreutz, Tom Waddle, Patrick Manley, you just start naming names, Mike Singletary, Gary Fensick. There's some great names. Can you guys have dinner with me and let's talk? I want to put a little group together here. What do we got to do?
Yeah, no, I think it would be wise.
But he'd never do that, George.
Probably not. But I think it would be wise, and I'd get a variety of voices. I really would, if in fact it was necessary, and maybe it is necessary because to go back to your question, like I think it's a great question. This team has gotten themselves, this franchise has gotten itself in trouble over the course of the last X number of decades because they brought in consultants. Bill Polian's a Hall of Famer. How'd that go? Ernie Accorsi, was part of the Giants dynasty. How did that go? None of it has worked. You've gone down that path. I think if you keep Ryan, you have to let him run points. And that's the report that was out there
By
today
Albert
from
Breer.
Albert Breer.
But that means you have to extend him. He has 1 year left. You cannot. Hey, Tom, I want you to come in and be the head coach. I only got a year left. And then in a year you go, 6-11. Caleb showed a little growth. I'm going to keep the coach, but I'm firing a GM.
I know this is why it's such a difficult conversation, because what if you see more of the same? What if you go to the gate next year and you've got the same type of offensive line and there's no self-awareness that that position, you haven't scouted it very well, or you haven't put that crew together. You haven't added a pass rusher. You've overvalued your own guys. Like I told you guys the other week, if you do move forward with Ryan, I would come in with a glass half empty approach and look at every person on that roster and just make sure that I'm not just coming to the conclusion that everyone's going to be a better player and it's all going to look better next year because we're going to have a better coach. Maybe some of the issues are your players aren't as good as any of us really, or most of us thought they were. So I think you have to go back and allow a reevaluation of a lot of these guys. And when you draft them or you sign them, you're naturally going to want to try and defend them and defend yourself because your reputation's on the line, and you can't let that get in the way of the evaluation process. So I think it's a great question. So, like, if you move on from Ryan, is it George and Kevin Warren hiring the coach?
Who else is there to hire?
If you keep Ryan and he's running point, and he did have an affinity for Matt Eberflus and sticking with Matt Eberflus, then are you trusting that he's going to find the right guy?
That's the big question that I cannot get an answer to. Like, did he want to move on from Matt at the end of last season and was told no? Or did he truly want this effed up situation where I got my new young quarterback and I'm going to keep Matt Eberflus?
I don't know the answer to that question. All I can go by is the Matt Eberflus retained his job and Ryan was his boss. So that whether or not Ryan wanted to keep him or launch him heading into the season, it didn't happen. So he has to wear that in some ways. And the fact that they decided to let him go 9 weeks in, that also, I hear maybe he was more in favor of letting him go earlier. Well, you didn't. So you still have to wear some of that. I don't know. And the fact that you don't know is, again, part of the problem with this organization that I love dearly, but admit freely, it has been run poorly over the course of the last
But if you go
decades.
out, let's assume that you don't bring him back. Okay? Ryan's gone. If you don't bring him back and it's George and Kevin, I can't trust that they're going to get the job done.
No.
Neither one has no history of knowing how to hire the right people. So,
But neither does Ryan.
True. But at least he's a football guy. He's got football people around him who would all be out the building as well, Ian Cunningham or whoever it is.
I think when they decided to make the coaching change in Washington, we had Rick Spielman on our radio show.
You mean when they moved down from Rivera?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
I believe they brought Rick in.
They brought Rick Spielman in, and was there somebody else?
They brought in a couple of
people. Did Tannenbaum help maybe?
I don't know if it was Tannenbaum, but they brought Rick in to kind of help them out with the identification
That's correct.
process. So, I mean, it does happen. Would it be Bill Polian and Ernie Accorsi? No, this time around. I don't know, Cap. It's a really good question. Do you have 100% confidence that with either path they choose that they're going to hire the right guy?
No.
So I don't know. Maybe bring, Gary Fensick in and Olin Kreutz in and Jay Hilgenberg,
Tom Waddle.
Tom Thayer. I'm not equipped to do all that.
You're
stuff.
equipped to sit on that committee with them.
Well, I don't know about that, but if you don't have a GM in place at the time, I don't know why it would hurt to bring in someone like Olin and talk to him. I mean, you may have to reconstruct a bridge that may have blown up.
Right.
But if you want to win, you bring in somebody who's been a winner his entire
But see,
life.
if I was Ryan Poles, and I'd like to say this to him, he's not sitting here. Otherwise, I would say,
if
Ryan,
I was Ryan, I'd call Olin to come in. I'd have
bingo.
Yeah.
You know what I would do? I would get in my vehicle and I would drive to Olin's gym in Libertyville. And I would say, okay, we're not at Hallis Hall. There's none of that around. You and me. I want to know, A, where do you think I effed up?
Yeah.
B, how would you fix it? And C, what's wrong with our shitty building?
Yeah. I think that would be, I think you'd get a lot of information out of
Because
Olin.
he's as honest as they come.
Right, and I think that he would have a lot of good thoughts. You're going to have some thick skin and a short memory to tolerate, what you're going
Correct.
to hear from him.
Correct.
You're going to have to employ it and then use it because it's all going to be constructive. But sometimes the truth is really difficult to hear. But look, I don't want to be one of those guys too that says, well, all the old players have all the answers. I don't think we have all the answers. But certainly up at Hallis Hall now, they haven't had them.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe try
something
different and just get a perspective. What's different about this? The reason why I think Olin, it would be so good to do it is he's got a connection to some of these players. He trains some of them.
Mm-hmm.
He's still in the football business. Have Jason McKee come in as well. Jason coaches Carmel. He's still in the football business. He's around the team. These guys could be infinitely valuable as resources to you. You don't have to cede any responsibility to them. You don't have to give them ownership of anything. Those are the types of guys I think that would want to come up and help you out because they have a true passion for the sport and for the organization.
Correct. And just go, guys, you know what? I'm going to ask for your input here.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean I'm going to hire him because you told me to.
Right.
But I want you to be honest with me.
Yeah. I think they would be because they do have a passion and they stay involved in the game. So they're at a crossroads. I mean, I think this is wouldn't say apathy. Apathy is the worst emotion that your fan base can have if you're an ownership group. It just is. I'd rather, if I owned a team, I'd rather have my fans pissed off.
You'd rather
at
turn
me.
on the radio and have people scream, that guy's horrible.
Yeah.
Rather than I really don't care.
Yeah. I think they're drifting into some apathetic situation.
See, and that's where I think the Bulls, the Blackhawks, the White Sox, their fan bases are becoming apathetic.
Yes,
where
and
the
that's
Cubs
dangerous.
and Bears, at least they're angry.
Yes. It hasn't gotten there yet, but they're drifting into that, I think, into that realm. And I think
horrible.
that's really dangerous.
Our special teams play of the week brought to you by Special Olympics Illinois. Special Olympics Illinois does so many great things for people with intellectual disabilities. Take it from the father of a child who has one. They are amazing. Go to specialympicsillinoi.org. It is Tory Taylor for his 327 yards.
So much for that text
punts.
or that call that Caleb sent or rang him up and said, hey, you're not going to be punting much this year.
Yeah.
Remember that back on draft day?
He's probably like, dude, I've been icing my leg every week. What are you doing?
It's crazy. It's unbelievable. I bet you that Torrey's probably got as many punting yards as Caleb has passing yards for the season.
That's a great question.
Yeah. Who's got more yards? That's not a good stat.
No. You out-punted the quarterback's passing yards.
And listen, while we're being, captain negative here, Torrey's a really talented guy. You know how I felt about the situation.
You thought it was a pick of arrogance. Not calling Ryan Poles arrogant. It was, well, your roster's so good that you can take a punter in the
My
fourth
dumbass.
round.
How did my dumbass know that?
You look good on it.
But I believe Torrey's only 16th, 17th, or 18th in the league in net punting. Like, it's a luxury to be able to do that. I mean, that's what the Patriots do with a fourth round pick after having won 4 Super Bowls in 5 years.
Tory Taylor has 3,657
So he's got more.
yards punting. He's
punted.
out-punted Caleb passing.
I wonder if that's the only – I'm sure that's not the only punter in the league that's got more yardage than a starting quarterback, but maybe for a quarterback that has played all 15 games.
That's not good.
No.
That's not good.
That's not good. That tells you got some issues.
Some real serious issues. Again, brought to you by our great partners at Special Olympics Illinois and our Dr. Pepper play of the game. If I ever watch Jake Curhan play another play, I'm going to puke. Whether it was the holding penalty, which Caleb had already cleared the pocket, he had ejected and gone left. He was in no danger of being sacked by Jake Curhan's guy, even though up the middle, Jake Curhan decided to pull him to the ground.
Guess what? Ultimately, players are responsible for their performance. Why was he in the game? You drafted Karan Amagaji with a 3rd round pick.
And you're playing Jake Curhan. And then he gets 4th and 1. He gets a false start penalty in the final drive. Caleb covered for him by hitting DJ Moore for the first down, but still.
Why not give Amagaji snaps in practice? Or they're not even practices at this point. They're just walkthroughs. But why not give him a shot? Why not get him out there and see what he has to do? He was good enough to play to be your starting left tackle against the Vikings in Minneapolis on Monday night, but not good enough to start at left guard against Seattle Thursday night at home. I just need somebody to explain. There may be a reasonable explanation for that. I just want someone to give it to me. Like, can you come up with a solid explanation for why that's the case?
What I believe is that Ryan Poles made the call that Amagaji starting in Minnesota, not the coaches.
Okay, and that didn't go well. So then the coaching staff said, "Listen, I'm being evaluated too, so I'm going to play the guys that give me a best chance to win."
Bingo.
And that's why Amagaji is not going to play. Is that also why Zach Pickens was a healthy scratch?
Probably.
Well, then you are so effed up, because at that point, he's an interim head coach. And I respect the fact that what he wants to do is win, because he's a competitor and he's worried about himself, and self-preservation is important. But his boss is Ryan Poles. And Ryan Poles needs to see Amagaji and Zach Pickens play, because there's a better chance that those two guys are going to be Chicago Bears next year than Thomas Brown.
Correct.
So there's a situation where your general manager, again, this is all speculation, would have to, I think it's his responsibility to tell you, hey, this is who's going to play.
Correct.
And if you don't like it, then we'll have somebody else stand on the sideline and oversee a 0-point first half. How about that?
Been brutal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a wise-ass comment. I apologize. That wasn't a shot at Thomas Brown, because he also has been put into a horrible situation.
Correct.
I told you that when it happened. I told you what they should have done is left him in the booth.
I thought they should have made John Hoke the interim head coach.
Perfect.
He's been around 50 years.
It was,
John, you're going to coach the team and meet the media.
Yeah.
Thomas, you just work with Caleb.
Right.
But I knew we were in trouble when I was playing the audio on the radio the next morning, and Caleb Williams said,
I don't really know Thomas
I don't really
Brown.
know Thomas. I didn't interact much with him. I'm like, he's the passing game coordinator. What?
Who's making these decisions? I mean, like, there's a list of them that just
baffle you.
I'm telling you, if I was Ben Johnson coming in for an interview, and you want me to step into this situation, I've said this 1,000 times. These top line candidates are going to vet the team just as vigorously as the team.
It's not like they're begging for a job.
No. And Ben Johnson's going to leave a scenario where he's got the best offensive line in football. He's got a supportive head coach. He's got a great setup, but he ultimately wants to run his own team. If I'm Ben Johnson, I walk into the building, and one of my first questions is, why did you guys handle Amagaji the way you did? Because I need to have a grasp as to how you run your franchise and the type of player he is and all this other stuff. If we're all going to work together here, I need you guys to walk me through why you thought it was okay to start him at left tackle against the Vikings in Minneapolis on a Monday night, but he wasn't good enough to even be in uniform as a backup the following week at home against the Lions team that had been decimated by injuries. What's the thought process? What's the decision-making process? Because if I come here and move my family here and put my career, my future on the line here, I want to know what I'm getting into. Those would be questions that I would be asking.
100%. 100%. Because I would look and go, well, hold on a second. I can go to Jacksonville, has an easier schedule, easier division. Trevor Lawrence needs to be fixed, but I think he has a lot of ability.
Money is not a problem with their own.
Shad Khan will spend into oblivion. You guys don't have that rep.
Right. So, I don't think the Bears' job is just hands down the most attractive. I think it is attractive because of Caleb and their cap situation, but their structure and the way they've run their business over the course of the last 15, 20, 30 years, it's not a selling point at all. If you win in this town, though, that's one of the allures. Again, and I'm not leaning on this is the charter franchise. I'm just telling you, if you win in this city, regardless of sport, it's unlike anything else. I think
it's insane.
I'm biased, but
it's insane.
Yeah,
I mean,
I just think you win a Super Bowl in Chicago, wow, you'd be a king.
Oh my God,
you'd be a king of Chicago
forever.
Yeah,
forever.
The way Ditka was. Now, that wasn't a fluke. I thought Mike was a great coach on a lot of fronts. Some people may disagree. I thought he did a nice job.
But they're looking for a Mike Ditka style. They said, Albert reported they wanted somebody that embodies the city of Chicago. What does that mean?
I don't know. It's blue collar, tough, but but you also have to be willing, because what I've also heard is that Jim Harbaugh wasn't an option because there was a personality conflict in the building, so to speak. Not so much Jim feeling about them, but how they felt about Jim. Well, shame on you.
That is correct.
Shame on you guys. I mean, you're in the business of winning football games, okay?
Correct.
Like Jim went from coaching a Chargers team that won 5 games last year. They've won 10.
They may end up with 11.
And he basically,
they're in the playoffs.
And his receiver room, he had to get rid of Austin Eckler, who was a running back. He got rid of Keenan Allen. He got rid of Mike Williams because of financial issues.
They drafted a left tackle with the 5th overall pick.
They've won 10 games. So like, again, as I've said a bunch, you can't make this hire based on how comfortable you are with the personality. I'm not asking you to welcome a felon into your building, to welcome, a horrible human being into your building. But if you have a personality conflict, or you guys just don't share the same likes,
buy a condo in Naples and hang out and come back for the games.
Yeah, that's what I would say. Because listen, we've all talked a lot about all the swearing that they wanted to edit out of Hard Knocks. Like, you don't have to swear to be good at football, okay? But if that's what you're
part
sweating,
of the deal.
But if that's what you're sweating right now, then I don't know that your priorities were. This is a rough sport, I mean, it's played by guys that are aggressive and very focused, and high energy, and there's a lot of emotion, there's a lot of risk involved with it. So there are going to be some unpleasant things that are going to be said, and you have to be willing to, just acknowledge that's the business you're in.
Part of the deal.
So if your coach comes into the building and MFs everybody because they had a bad game, you just, if you're not comfortable having dinner with him, don't invite him to dinner. Just have him coach your football team.
Correct. Finally, it is our look ahead to the Green Bay game, brought to you by the Illinois Tollway. Try their Star 999 service. You ever have an issue out on the tollway, remember this, Star 999. They will get you help immediately. It's Star 999, brought to you by our great partners at the Illinois Tollway. Okay, you got to deal with Jordan Love.
Yeah.
You got to deal with Josh Jacobs.
Yeah.
You got to deal.
Do they have anything to play for? Are they playing for a seeding? I haven't even looked at it yet.
I do not believe they are.
But
they are locked into playoffs for sure.
Of course, yeah, they're in the postseason. But is there anything? It's the only thing I would factor in here. Look, I think 1, 2, 3 Cancun, as our good friend Jonathan Hood likes to say all the time, has obviously been the break call for the Bears up at Hallis Hall recently. I don't know what group of Packers you're going to get. They may actually tap the brakes a little bit so that they protect themselves from injury if there's nothing to gain. Now, the fact that you're playing the Bears, I think, would goose this up a little bit more, but I'm not 100% sure what's at stake for the Packers, if anything.
I'm looking it up for you right now.
I got to tell you that this is where kind of the Bears' apathy is set in a little bit.
Okay, here it is. With the Commanders beating the Falcons last night, here's what's at stake in Week 18 for Green Bay. They get the 6th seed if and only if Green Bay beats Chicago and Washington loses to Dallas. They get the 7th seed if Washington beats Dallas or Green Bay and Washington both lose.
So they got to win to get the 6th seed.
They got to win and then hope that Washington loses to the Cowboys.
That really doesn't clear things up for me a whole bunch. Would you rather be the 6th or the 7th seed? I don't know. Or you're going to play the 2 seed, right? If you're the 7, isn't that what
that means you get the Eagles.
Yeah, you don't want that.
In Philly.
No.
No.
So you would want to win this game and have the 6th seed, is what I would think.
Yeah.
And then maybe you would get either what? I think the loser of the Lions and Vikings games ultimately
is the 5.
Going to be the 5. So
that's going to be a hell of a game too. Sunday Night Football. Oh,
that's going to
can't
be great.
wait.
It's going to be great. Listen, I think anytime the Packers step on the field and it's the Bears, they take it seriously. So Malik Willis may put 40 on this team at this point too. So even if they sit Jordan Love, we've seen that Matt LaFleur knows how to get his backup quarterback ready to play. So
I remember when they traded for him like a 7th round pick from Tennessee.
We were like,
and there were people, I was reading all the articles up there because we have a home in Wisconsin. I'm reading the newspaper up there and it's like, well, this guy's terrible. He's
Yeah.
got no chance. And then he's winning football games when Jordan Love hurt his knee.
They'll run the football. They'll be well coached. You know, they have a system.
Okay, when you played in Green Bay,
Loved it.
You loved it.
Loved it.
Did Ditka make you keep your helmets on because
No.
people threw stuff at you?
No, we had to do that going to play the Mountaineers in West Virginia at BC. There were some old people out there that would chuck whiskey bottles and
Batteries.
rotten apples and batteries and whatever it was. We never got that. I never.
Did they
experienced
ever drive around the hotel and honk their horns late at
it.
night?
They may have. I don't remember, but I don't recall anything out of the sort. You know, that was ridiculous.
Because Mark Grace told me playing against the Mets, he said an old lady threw her crutch at him as he was running out to first.
Yeah.
She whipped it from the stands.
Yeah.
Patrick Kane told me they were playing in Vancouver when the Hawks were really good, and so was Roberto Luongo and the Canucks. He's like, we are literally in a car going to get sushi to go get something to eat. And there's an old woman with a walker going across the street, oxygen mask on with a walker. She sees it's Kane and Taves and whoever else in a car.
And in Vancouver, she would know.
And she stops, pulls the oxygen down from her face, and starts screaming F-bombs at them. He's like, love it.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
It's great.
Yeah.
I love playing there. I mean, when you drive the bus in, you'd hear it from everyone, but it's just such a majestic stadium, so much history.
And you won there.
Yeah, I think we did a couple times.
Were you there when Kevin Butler hit the 53-yard field goal to beat them?
Remember. I forget what year it was.
Walk-off, 53, good.
I don't remember. My memory sucks. I'm not sure. I don't think so. That was probably before me.
It's a great rivalry,
It is.
man.
It's great.
I want the Bears to get the highest draft pick they could get.
It's crazy, Cap, because like even with 4, they had 7 wins last year, and they were drafting higher. What were they drafting? 8th or 9th?
9th last year, and right now they're 9th
with 4 wins.
4 wins.
Yeah, it's
like a whole
insane.
bunch of crazy shit has to happen. They could pick as high as 4, but it's
They may-
probably going to be like
They
7.
may
8,
end
9.
up their pick may be sooner than the Carolina pick. If Carolina wins on Sunday and the Bears lose, Carolina would have 5 wins. The Bears would have 4. So when we were thinking that, we're going to get the first pick of the draft again, we may actually be selecting earlier with our own pick before the one we're getting from them.
It's crazy. It's
Could
pathetic.
have never projected that this would happen coming out of London. I could have never in 1,000 years told you that this would ultimately be what they've done.
That'd be the last game they won.
Yeah. Can't believe it.
Insane. Tommy, great to see you, man.
Great to be here. This is a great place.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you. That is another edition of Feldco Football Recap Live. Don't forget, next week, January 7th, our final show of the year, and that will be at Hooters in Melrose Park. Alex Brown, Tommy, me. So call to get a reservation at the restaurant. Love to have you out there. Eat their wings, talk football with us. Happy, healthy New Year. Take that.
Kick off the new year in style with Feldco.
Let the experts at Feldco renew your home with 25% off Feldco windows, siding, doors, and roofing. Plus, no interest for 1 year. Choosing Feldco for your home renewal project means you'll be getting high-quality products made for the Midwestern weather, crafted right here in the U.S.
Hurry, 25% off ends soon. Call now.
For quality windows, siding, and doors, call 866 for Feldco.
Feldco Football Recap Live is brought to you by Feldco. For quality windows, siding, and doors, call 866-4FELDCO, Chicago's home renewal experts. Your Chicagoland and Northwest Indiana Chevy dealers, the official truck partner of the Chicago Bears. Hooters. At Hooters, originality isn't just one thing, it's everything. World-famous wings and more, served up by the iconic Hooters girl. Hooters, always original. Dr. Pepper, an American original, just like our Chicago Bears. Grab an ice cold, refreshing Dr. Pepper today at a McDonald's near you. Special Olympics Illinois. Special Olympics Illinois, so I did. Learn more at SOILL.org. Apt. For the best appliances for football season, shop at Apt. Pleasing people since 1936. Find them at apt.com. 4 Seasons, heating, plumbing, air conditioning, and electric For all the right reasons, 4 seasons. When you're on the tollway, peace of mind is just a call away. With the Illinois Tollway Star 999 service, help is always at your fingertips. Whether it's a flat tire or an unexpected breakdown, our dedicated team is here to assist you anytime and anywhere on the tollway. Drive with confidence knowing that Star 999 is just a dial away. Remember, Star 999, we're always there when you need us.
You got the new house, and the space is a little tight. And with LG's Counter Depth Max with zero clearance, you'll get the ultimate built-in look. You can install it in tight spaces and still fully open the doors and not have to worry about hitting the wall. The LG Counter Depth Max refrigerator with zero clearance. Max out your space, max out your style. To see the full line of LG products, shop at Apt, pleasing people since 1936.